We are in week 5 of our month-long teaching series on Unity's 5 basic principles. Each Sunday of this 5-week month, we have dealt with one principle in particular, and this week we'll deal with the 5th principle, and if it is something that is in the divine cards, we would kind of wrap it all up and put it in a pretty little bowl and see what it all means. So hopefully everyone is strapped in and buckled up in their seats and ready to take this journey with me. Are you guys ready? Yeah. Are you sure? Yes. It might get a little dangerous. You can bail out now. Okay, for reminders, let's look at our 5 basic principles in unity. These 5 principles, we advertise them as Unity's 5 basic principles. In reality, there are many spiritual traditions. If you've moved past the layers of ritual and doctrine and the outside forms and really drill down to the essential principles of what a lot of spiritual paths are, these 5 principles are very common to many different spiritual paths. And I made the bold statement in the first week of this series that I believe that these principles are so powerful and so universal to a lot of spiritual paths that I believe that an atheist, a stone-staunch atheist, maybe replace the word God with something else of a whole and higher quality, a staunch atheist could benefit from these principles. Let's take a look at them. The first one, God is absolute good, everywhere present. There is no place or no space in the known universe and beyond the known universe where God does not exist, where God does not have a presence, where God is not fully and completely available, meaning that all of the characteristics, all of the attributes, all of the qualities, all of the absolute power that God is can be found any and everywhere. There are no God-empty spots. God is a presence without an absence. So if God is a presence without an absence, and there's no place that you can go where God is not, that must mean that God is where you are. Where you are. God is where you are, expressing in, through, and as you. And that leads to the second principle. Humans are created in God's image. Our very essence is divine. Therefore, we are inherently good. Now, buried in that is a bold statement that humans are inherently good and that our very essence is divine. That may be a little different than what some of us are used to hearing. Many spiritual traditions talk about human nature in a way in which to say that human nature is depraved. Human nature is somehow naturally defective. We make the bold declaration here that you are not born botched. You are not born defective. Your very essence comes from pure love. Your very essence comes from pure joy, pure wisdom. And because that is your essence, and because that is your nature, you weren't born in original sin. You were born in original blessing. Well, if I'm born in original blessing, why doesn't my life always feel that way? Why doesn't my life always seem like it's happy or harmonious or just or rosy? Well, that leads to the third one. We create our life experiences through our thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. If God seems absent to you, it's only because God is absent in your thoughts. God is absent in your awareness. You may not know, or perhaps you might have lost sight of, the fact that God is fully and completely present right where you are, in, through, and as you. So as we align our thoughts, our beliefs, and our feelings with who we know we are, the same way that Jesus did, then we are able to, from our thoughts, our feelings, and our beliefs, create our experiences in such a way to where our experiences are blessed, harmonious, purposeful, fruitful, beneficial. That's the power of thought. As it reads in Romans, be not conformed to this world, but be ye renewed by the transforming of your mind. When you allow your mind to be transformed in alignment with the nature of who you are as a God-inspired, God-natured, and God-realized being in person, you can experience the benefits and blessings in your life that should naturally, organically flow from that kind of understanding. Through prayer and meditation, we align with God. This is an extremely important step because it's one thing to understand that God is fully present from an intellectual understanding. You may entertain the idea that if God is, I am, meaning that I am of God, God is in me, God lives, moves, and has expression. It's one thing to understand that cognitively or intellectually. It's another thing to understand it from a heartfelt, intimate understanding. And through the practice of prayer and meditation, we can intimately grow in our understanding and our awareness that we are one with God. We are naturally connected with God. Jesus in the scriptures constantly affirmed his connection with his Father. I and my Father are one. Constantly affirming this, we look at Jesus as the great example of a high and holy use of these 5 basic principles. Jesus was the example of one who walked, knowing his oneness with his Father, using his mind and using his power to teach those and bless those that he came in contact with. Those are the first 4 principles. Today, we're going to put focus on that 5th principle. We must live the truth that we know. Knowing it is one thing, but if we don't live it, it does no good to know it. You might as well not know it if you're not going to show up in this truth and step out in faith on this truth. It doesn't matter. So when I think of this principle, living the truth that we know, to me it boils down to 2 basic ideas. The first idea is to practice the first 4 principles. Practice them consistently. It's not a one-time thing. You don't read them off the page the first time and you have them, because some of us may look at that list and think that that is a code of belief that we adopt as true simply because we read it on the paper and it gave us a warm, fuzzy feeling when we read it. That list is a placeholder. It is a diving board, if you will, to jump off into the consciousness, because the place that you want to get to is that we are so intimately aware of these principles and we practice them so much that they become as self-evident as your name. The last time someone asks you what your name is, I'm going to make a prediction that you did not run to get your birth certificate to go see what your name is. Anyone do that? We won't laugh at you if you did. You knew your name because you're well established in consciousness to what your name is. The same intimacy we want to know with truth. We want to be so comfortable with truth principle that we practice them automatically without even thinking. So practicing the first 4 principles is the first step in this. The second step is acting on what we receive from the practicing of the first 4 principles. In other words, acting on the clarity of purpose, acting on the direction that you receive, acting on the divine guidance, acting on the higher awareness, acting on the deeper understanding. Act on it. Again, if you don't move with it, there's no need in knowing it. You might as well not even study it. Act on it, because it's about showing up in the world. We show up every day in the world, and we impact the world whether we realize it or not. You are so powerful that the ripple that you are creating just by breathing is having a universal cosmic effect on something going on in the other side of the world. You are that I'm going to say that again because some of you look like, what? Your presence right here and right now and how you show up in the world ripples out and has far-reaching effects far beyond you. We'll talk about why this is true a little later on, but please don't make a mistake. You are wonderful. You are lovely. You are beautiful. You are powerful. You are purposeful. You are not born botched. You are not born a defect. You are not an accident, regardless what the circumstances were surrounding the getting together of the two people that produced you. You are a wonderful, beautiful presence and expression of the very living God that is fully and completely present right here and right now. That is you. Don't shortchange yourself at all. I don't care what mistakes you've made. I don't care how much you screwed it up. I don't care how badly you played the fool in your life. You are not the fool. You are the very presence of God. So embrace that. Now, let's go forward looking back at all the principles. How do we practice these principles in everyday life? God is absolute good, everywhere present. Humans are created in God's image. Our very essence is divine. Therefore, we are inherently good. We want to practice the presence of God. We don't want to just know it. We want to practice it. And that starts with prayer and meditation. Prayer and meditation, going into the silence where we limit the distractions, limit the outside noise, get into our breathing, and simply take a moment to be. And as we take a moment to be, we get in touch with our essential nature. When we get in touch with our essential nature, we begin to have an expanded awareness of ourselves, an expanded awareness of reality, and an expanded awareness of our possibilities. As this happens, we begin to take on a new idea of ourselves, a new understanding of ourselves. We tap into resources and power centers that we did not know or even realize that were available to us. In other words, we start feeling as though our life is being supported instead of us feeling like we're being managed, or we have to manage things all the time. So we practice the presence of God. We become aware and conscious of the things that we think and the things that we feel. We begin to monitor our thoughts, to examine, are the thoughts and beliefs that I hold, are they serving me? Are they giving me a practical benefit in my life? Are they nurturing my life in a very fruitful and beneficial way so that it manifests as wonderful things in my daily life, in my relationships, in the activities that I do? Or are my beliefs somehow not serving me? Are my beliefs leading to a result that I don't want, that I don't desire? Am I creating things in my life, either consciously or unconsciously, that I don't know about? We begin to analyze ourselves in this way, and we try to be more conscious of the things that we're thinking, and even take the additional step of consciously choosing beliefs and choosing thoughts that work with us and work for us. And when we do that, we can realize things that are very beneficial. Now, number 4 is a very dangerous thing. Number 3 is a very dangerous thing. Because as we become conscious of our thoughts, feelings, and beliefs, we start taking on a new understanding of ourselves. We begin to understand how wonderful we are and how blessed we are and how the things in our lives have worked for our benefit and our favor. We begin to entertain possibilities of things that we can do and ways that we can be that can bring more health, more wealth, more abundance, more love, more joy, more peace into our lives. So we begin discovering that because what is in us begins to come out of us. What also comes out of us are our fears, our phobias, our stresses, our unhealed wounds, our unresolved trauma. Because when we adopt these principles, we become more receptive. And as these things come to the fore, they're coming to the fore for our examination and our awareness so that we can heal them. We can find out whether or not we have some fears that need to be healed by a changing of our beliefs or a changing of our thoughts. We find out about these phobias. These things happen. One of the things that I found out about is that I get really nervous when I come up in front of people to speak. What? You all believe that, don't you? There was a time where I did. And someone in my life, my dad, who saw a potential in me, put me in a situation where I had to speak, or else. I won't tell you what the or else was. But I didn't know that I had this fear until he threw me out of there, threw me out in front of people. And then 20 minutes later, I realized that it was something that I could do. This was an awareness that I didn't really have before my dad actually put me in that experience and forced me to do the potential that he saw within me. So things come up. So I had a fear, and by the continuing of speaking, I kind of healed that fear. But that's what happens when we allow ourselves to get still, steady, and humble. Things come up for us to realize and behold, and things come up for us to examine and to heal. So that's how that works. So when we practice these things and we dare to act on them and we dare to live by them, that's where the magic happens. That's where the magic happens. By practicing these principles, we become clear about our lives and clear about the world around us and clear about how we want to show up. By practicing these principles, we identify our dreams. And once we identify our dreams, we act on those dreams boldly. We walk on them boldly with the confidence that not only am I going to accomplish this dream, the dream is already accomplished in me. I'm simply walking the steps to bring it about. When I come up with my mission and my purpose from practicing these principles, I walk in my purpose. I do the things and make the choices that bring my purpose into fruition and manifestation. I don't stay sitting on a lotus position in meditation, playing meditation music, feeling beautiful. I act on the beautiful and magnify the beautiful around me. When I get clear and more love wells up in me because I'm tapping into the source of love, then I want to act and connect with people. I want to embrace people. I want to see people in a higher and different light. I want to establish relationships. I want to take inventory of the relationships I currently have in my life and see how I can enhance them and beautify them. See where I kind of put my foot in it that made the relationship strained, and realize what is mine to do in order to improve the relationships in my life. When a need arises, and that need, and I see a need out there, and it resonates with me deeply, then I act on it to serve. See the need and affirm the solution to the need. Affirm what it is that will be the opposite of the need. Not address the need on the level of the need, but create something new that makes the need obsolete. and no longer in existence. So I don't affirm solving hunger. I want to affirm that everybody eats and eats consistently. I don't want to affirm that we solve crime. I affirm that everyone has what they need spiritually, mentally, physically, and emotionally so that they can walk in their abundance and won't even have a thought to commit a crime. I don't want to go and confront war. I want to affirm that everywhere on the planet, all that is needed to bolster and foster peace is present, so no one even thinks about war. That's a higher vibration than solving something on the level of the something. God is infinitely powerful and infinitely capable. So we can bring in something new that makes the need evaporate. That's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. So these are the 5 principles. These are the 5 principles. We're talking about living the truth that we know. It's the last principle on the list, but it's not the end of the game. Because all of it is supposed to mean something. All of it leads to something. And what it leads to living the truth that we know so that we can be the truth that we are. It's about being who we are. It's about being the presence of God in action. It's about experiencing God on an everyday basis and not just believing that God is somewhere out there, but God is really where you are so that we can live and experience and be God. It's about being who you are. It's about being what you were created to be. Don't know if you realize it, but there were a lot of biological, energetic, cosmic, and chemical processes that took place to give rise to you. You are something that the entire universe is doing, just like the wave is something that the entire ocean is doing. There are so many things that went into play to cause your existence, to cause you to be here right now in your big, loving, beautiful self. I don't care what you've been through. I don't care what you've gone through. Even if you think your life is in the lowest of the low, right now you're breathing. And you're not even consciously breathing most of the time. So even though you could be at a very low point, there is something happening in your life right now that is working towards your highest good. That's how loved you are. That's how special in the eyes of God that you are. So it's about being who you are. It's about being the truth of who you are. When I turn to Scripture this morning, I look at Matthew chapter 5, verses 48. And this really helps to bring the point home about what the consistent practice of the 5 basic principles brings about. Therefore, you shall be perfect as your heavenly Father, or your Father in heaven, is perfect. Now, what does that mean? That word perfect is a very interesting word. The root word of the word perfect in that scripture, the root word is a word that means complete. It means whole. It doesn't mean flawless. It doesn't mean free from mistakes. It doesn't mean that we don't screw it up sometimes. It means perfect and it means whole. What it means is your spiritual nature is already whole, perfect, and complete. Your very nature, the very essence of you, is free from blemish, free from error. Again, you're not born defective or botched. Your divine potential is already whole and complete. You're perfect. You may not necessarily be done. The recipe that you got together and you put the ingredients together, that recipe is perfect, but it's not done until it's finished cooking. You haven't finished cooking yet. You're still in the oven. The aroma of you is still filling the kitchen, but you're living while you're still cooking. And as you're living, you become more and more aligned with the truth of who you are. That's what perfect means. It means that there's an aspect of you that is perfect, complete, capable, confident, powerful, that is unblemished. Our challenge in living these principles is to tap into that perfection and live it in our expression. So the perfection of who we are, since we are all love, we want to live love. We want to be love. We want to experience and express more love. Every moment is not always loving, but we can have more loving moments if we tap into the beauty of who we are. Every moment may not be peaceful, but we are the essence of peace. Peace is fully and completely present. We tap into that peace, and more of our choices and decisions and our experiences and activities bring about more peace. That's how this works. And as this happens, we become more and more and more of who we are. And as we become more and more of who we are, God becomes more and more and more predominant. One of my favorite affirmations comes from Dr. Ernest Holmes. It goes like this: there is only one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. There's only one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. The intersection of God's life is in my life is me being who I truly am. The intersection of God's life in your life is you being who you truly are. You're not an accident. You are here to express something beautiful and wonderful in life. You are here to bring something into expression that only you can bring, the way that you can bring it. If that weren't true, you wouldn't be here. Because that's the case, I would invite you to consider these 5 unity principles and adopt them into your life and begin to practice them where you are. You don't have to be perfect. This doesn't mean acting holy. It doesn't mean acting saintly. It doesn't mean that when you start to do it, angels will descend upon you. It simply means being yourself, being your beautiful, honest, raw, determined, sometimes quirky and ornery, whoever you are, however you are, being yourself. And when you be yourself from a higher level of consciousness and a higher level of understanding, you begin to experience these blessings. You begin to experience this awe and this wonder that is the journey of life. So take these principles, study them, play with them, practice them, and see what you become because of them. I double dare you. As always, I hold you all in very sacred space, and into that sacred space, I speak a simple word of prayer. Light, life, and love to you all. God bless you.
I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God.